अब आ रही? आ रही? आ रहा है? शुरू करो। हाँ,
आ गया। बढ़िया।
अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह रब्बिल आलमीन वस्सलातु वस्सलामु अला रसूलिहिल करीम। Alhamdulillah, we are blessed with these very sanctified and full of mercy, full of bounty days, 10 days of Dhul Hijjah. The reason why they are sanctified and full of blessings in Islam is because of the great feat achieved by Ibrahim alayhi salam and his son Ismail alayhi salam. This feat of the act, just sheer act of sacrificing, acting to sacrifice or attempting to sacrifice his son, has been accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with such high honor, with such high level of qabuliyat, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made the people who came after Ibrahim alayhi salam, for them a ritual, for them a sanctified moment, for them an occasion to seek blessing. Now question comes that if anyone looks at the feat that Ibrahim alayhi salam achieved, what his son did, it is really truly remarkable, it is truly incredible, it's truly unbelievable. One is bound to ask the next question: what were some of the traits, some of the characteristics, some of the personality traits of Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam and Hazrat Ismail alayhi salam that enabled them to achieve this great feat, for them to achieve this great honor and rank in the entire human race? So when we look at it, we find that there are certain characteristics of Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam which can help us become successful in this dunya and hereafter, even today. Imagine yourself in a situation where you're trying to follow Islam, you're a believer, but then people around you are not staunch followers. They either don't follow it properly, or they perhaps to some extent, some of the environment, some of the people actually make fun of it. Some of the people around you are outright infidels. They don't believe in Islam. Or perhaps there are Muslims, but they are involved in sins like corruption, sins like being unmodest and stuff like that. In all those situations, weak Muslims like us feel a lot of pressure. That's where the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam offers us real inspiration. So let us go back to the fundamental question: what are some of the key characteristics of Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam that can help us today become a better Muslim and be successful in this dunya and the hereafter, and stick and be glued to the do's and don'ts of Islam, the injunctions of Islam, no matter how aggressive, how non-conducive the environment around us is. So let us look at those personality traits or characteristics of Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam. Imagine that a boy is born and is being raised in an environment where everybody around him is an idol worshipper. Now this boy, right from the beginning, is an original thinker. This boy, right from the beginning, does not take things for granted. He does not believe in things just like that. So he asks his mom, "Mama, can you tell me? I have so many needs, I'm so weak. Who takes care of my needs? Who's my Rabb? Who's my Lord?" And his mother responds by saying that, "Obviously, my son, I'm your Lord, I'm your Rabb, I take care of your needs." And then Ibrahim alayhi salam is not really satisfied with his answer. The next question comes to his mind, and he asks, "Oh my dear mother, then who is your Rabb? Who is your Lord? Who takes care of your needs?" Then she responds by saying, "Son, my son, obviously it is your father and my husband, Adar, who takes care of our needs of both of us. But the young boy is not satisfied with that answer either. So he goes on asking, Bazir, then who turns out to be the Rabb, the Lord of my father? And she becomes a little exasperated, but she responds by saying, it's Nimrud, is the king of the entire kingdom, of the entire country, who is taking care of our needs. But those questions, those answers does not satisfy that young boy. And he keeps on asking, and he keeps on seeking for the truth. So that spirit alone is, if anybody around any corner of this earth has that spirit, he would again traverse, he would again travel, he would again walk the same path that Ibrahim alayhi salam walked, that Ibrahim alayhi salam followed. So this is the first thing. The second thing that Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam had in him was that once he realized the truth, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down the nur of hidayat, sadaqat and truth in his heart, and when he recognized Allah, and when he asked the famous question again out of curiosity, he was making hypotheses and then rejecting those hypotheses. First he looked at the stars and he said, this is my Rabb. But then he rejected when the stars faded away. And then he said, this moon is my Rabb. But then again, when the sun arrived, moon was gone. So he said, how can something that fades away, that goes away, can be my Rabb? No way. But then he's looked at sun, and then he declared sun as his Rabb. So he's coming up with hypotheses, and then he's rejecting those hypotheses. And then eventually he rejected that hypothesis as well. So Ibrahim alayhi salam is on the fitrah, on nature. So he actually his fundamental problem is not how he would live, how would his economics work. His fundamental problem is to find out the meaning in his life, the purpose of his life, to find out who created him, who is taking care of him. So that's the kind of the mind that is most fertile for hidayat. But then when he receives hidayat, then when he recognizes Lord, when he arrives at the conclusion that Allah is my Rabb, and He is the only creator, the sustainer of the entire universe, not just me, but entire universe, then his love for Allah, his bonding with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so strong that not a single moment passes that Ibrahim alayhi salam is oblivious, is forgetful of his Lord. He's always clinging on to the thoughts with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is always sticking to seeking help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, making ibadah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's fallen in true love with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Such is his state, and therefore his rank. So on one occasion, there's a narration in hadith which says that the malaika who always worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they're truly impressed by Ibrahim alayhi salam's status as the Khalil of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they say, they approach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and one of them says that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, why have you raised Ibrahim alayhi salam to such a high level that you given him the title of being Khalil? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responds by saying, why don't you find it out yourself? So this angel proceeds and approaches Ibrahim alayhi salam. Ibrahim alayhi salam has a herd of sheep, and that's his only sheep, and that's his only mal, and he is actually taking those he's herding them. And this malak, this angel arrives and says Allah. When Ibrahim alayhi salam hears this word Allah, he approaches him, he leaves his sheep and he forgets about them. When he hears the name of his beloved, he immediately finds out where this sound came from, where this voice came from. And on finding out, he said, did you say Allah? He said, yes, I said Allah. And then he said, can you say that just once more? So he's seeking just a pleasure from hearing the name of his beloved. And then the farishta, the angel, asks him, what is in it for me? If I'm saying Allah again, what are you going to give me? What is going to be my remuneration? And Ibrahim alayhi salam responds by saying that, well, I can see, this is the only thing that I have. So I can offer you half of my herd if you say just Allah just once, and that angel says Allah, and Ibrahim alayhi salam is again exuberant in a state of ecstasy, and he again demands, he again convinces the angel, please say that word once again. Such is his love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us, a small iota of that love, and we will be successful. So he says, then he says that what is in it for me? And then Ibrahim alayhi salam offers the remaining half of the herd. And when his herd is finished, and he insists, then he says, Ibrahim alayhi salam responds by saying that there's nothing that I'm left with. The only thing I'm left with is my own free soul and my own self. And I can sell to you my own self, and I can live as your slave for the rest of my life, but just say Allah once more. And this was enough to convince that angel that Ibrahim alayhi salam truly deserves the status of being the Khalil of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this was the second trait in Ibrahim alayhi salam that made him, the leader of all the believers, the father of all the prophets that were to come after him. Such a high status. The third aspect of Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inculcated in him and gave him as a part of his personality was that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Holy Quran, Inna Ibrahima halimun awwahum munib, which means that Ibrahim alayhi salam was surely very soft-hearted. First of all, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that he was halim. He had a very high level of patience. So in the event when a group of malaika came who gave him the glad tidings of having a son in a very old age of Ismail alayhi salam and Ishaq alayhi salam, but at the same time they were proceeding, their next assignment was to destroy the people of Lut alayhi salam because they had crossed all the limits. So Ibrahim alayhi salam was so halim, was so patient, was so careful about the other people. He knew about the transgressions of the people of Lut alayhi salam, yet he argued with those malaika, with those people, with those messengers, the malaika, the angels who were sent to destroy that basti, to destroy that village, that settlement. So he had that softness in his heart, that feeling in his heart, that feeling of sympathy for all in his heart. And at the same time, he was awwahun, which means that he used to weep, he used to cry in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala very often. And the third thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells about him, that he was munib, which means that he was always making ruju with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He was always turning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He was always engaging in a dialogue with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in conversation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these are some of the traits why Ibrahim alayhi salam became Ibrahim alayhi salam, how he earned the status. And then there are specific incidents in his life when he did not budge and he was thrown into the fire. He never bowed his neck before the idols as Nimrod demanded of him. And he even though he saw that dream, and when he saw that dream, he was ready to make the sacrifice of his beloved son, because to him it was a choice between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his son. And in the end, and all the choices that he faced, every time he decided in favor of the great Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of his great beloved. If we can somehow recreate, somehow learn, somehow develop a fraction of that love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a fraction of that hilm, a fraction of that genuine curiosity, then inshallah we would make our lives, our dunya successful and our akhirat successful. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us some of those traits of Ibrahim alayhi salam in this dunya, and give some of his success in the akhirah as well. I'll be here with you again tomorrow around 6:15, 6:30 inshallah. Jazakallah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Good.